European Parliament. There are 7 groups in total, or 6, and the non-attached group of members who are not affiliated to anybody. Our group is a fairly broad church. It includes people who are anti-EU opponents, like me, through to people who are more Euro-critical. I view groups in the Parliament as being a convenience. For me, I've been in one ever since I've been here, since '99. But I don't, I mean, it's useful being in a group. I'd rather be in a group than not be in a group, but it's not the centrepiece of my life. Government of the people, by the people. It's very simple, and there's no need to fiddle with it or alter it. I mean, the Greeks got it about right. Was it 2,500 years ago? And whatever its imperfections or flaws, as Churchill said, it is without doubt the least worst system that mankind has yet devised. And I think importantly, certainly within our culture, Western culture, the beauty of democracy is that it acts as a safety valve. Even if you hate the government of the day, you vow to vote for somebody else, and it acts as a safety valve because you don't need to resort to violence or take to the streets, because the democratic process gives you the opportunity to change things. It's when you haven't got democracy that people start turning nasty. It's been an anti-democratic process. Not undemocratic, anti-democratic process. When we had the Constitution back in '05, and the French voted no, and the Dutch voted no, and they rebranded it as the Lisbon Treaty, boasting that they wouldn't need to have any more referendums because it was a treaty, not a constitution. And when the Irish, the one country that did, voted no, I'll never forget Mr. Schulz, who's now the Parliament President, who then led the European Socialists, and he said in the Parliament the day after the Irish vote, "We must not bow to populism," by which he meant we couldn't care less how you voted, we're going to ignore you and press on regardless. So if you say it's undemocratic, you imply that it could be improved. We could tinker around the edges and make it better. I prefer to say it's anti-democratic, because they're absolutely doing everything they can to make sure that the will of the people is not heard. Well, we had 2 referenda. We had Lisbon 1, Lisbon 2. I mean, Lisbon 2, anybody that spoke up on the side of a no vote was demonised in a way you can't believe. I did a debate with Dick Roche, who was then the Europe Minister in Ireland. I mean, basically, I was demonised. Fascist, neo-Nazi, just incredible. I mean, intellectually vacuous, but that was what they did. Excuse me, when I was being interviewed on mainstream television and radio, I mean, the levels of hostility were just extraordinary. So no balance in the press at all. Massively more money spent on the yes side than the no side. I mean, more like one of Hitler's plebiscites than a proper referendum. No. As the split in the Eurozone from north to south is showing, whatever the political difference is, whatever the economic difference is, the big split is cultural. Huge cultural splits and divisions. And actually, what's wrong with that? Yeah. What is wrong with a Europe of diverse cultures and languages and customs and wines and cheeses? If I was French, I'd say vive la différence, wouldn't I? I think, to me, a diverse Europe is a much more interesting, much more fun, much more vibrant Europe than this Europe. Look around you. Everything's grey. The sky outside's grey, the buildings are grey, the people are grey. I mean, this is the most sort of modern, puritanical, killjoy, dead hand of bureaucracy, stifling individuality and innovation. This isn't Europe. I think, in one sense, we shouldn't be that surprised, because through the history of mankind, if you challenge a consensus, whether it's in politics, business or science, the establishment always club together and condemn and abuse anybody that tries to break in. You know, Darwin perhaps being a very good example in science, Michael O'Leary of EasyJet being an example in business. So, in a sense, it is a very natural human thing for the establishment to club together and try and stop anybody else coming in. I think the difference is that this has gone so far that we're almost at the level of Orwell's thought police. You know, when you read the account that the couple whose kids were removed, that the local council had been tipped off they were UKIP. I mean, is this East Germany? It's very worrying. Very, very worrying indeed. But there's still a fairly big gulf of misunderstanding. People think, oh, Brussels is boring. A lot of them don't realise that what happens here impacts their lives absolutely massively in every single way. The more people wake up to it, the more they'll be opposed to it. So we're getting there. There is progress, but for the moment, the political class have got the whip hand. They're in charge, and the people, particularly the Mediterranean, are suffering terribly. Not pretty. Luckily, Britain would like to say that democracy is something that has evolved over a couple of thousand years, is something that we used to consider to be so important, we even fought world wars over the very principle of, and now our political classes have allowed people here to deliberately attempt to dismantle it. So the fight is to get back our independence and our liberty. In the end, we'll win.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.